All right, happy to welcome back regular podcast guest. Now, I guess this is an annual tradition now with Jack Marucci. Jack, thank you for your time. I want to start with something we were just talking about, and it's on your computer right behind you, so it's fresh in my mind. But one of my favorite things to do with you is to look at the game and football specifically a little bit differently and from a different lens. I think you do that. And maybe I want to ask you about how you got into that mode of thinking, but I want to start with something specific before we get into the general stuff. At some point we talked about, and I think this was before the 2019 season, about not only the character of that team, but the mental makeup of that team and the mental skills that team had, the processing ability, the intelligence. And we talked about it before the season, and then obviously the season plays out the way that it did, and so all that stuff is only highlighted more. But before we sat down and turned on the microphones, you were talking about that work and the extension of that work with S2. Right. So if you could, let's talk about the mental aspect of football and the testable side of football and the work you've done at LSU with others and how that work's expanded.
Yeah, I think what we've seen, because now we have data that we have 4 to 5 year outcomes. So we can kind of see even where these guys, after they leave here, how do they turn out in the NFL? Mm-hmm. And I think that's an interesting piece because it's the sustainability. It's the players that are getting drafted high. I think what we've seen, to give you some numbers, you only have about a 29.8% chance to sign a second contract in the NFL. It's very low. It's a lot lower than people think. If you score a 70 on this test, you have a 65% chance to sign a second contract. And I also looked at long-term players, and obviously we don't have scores on everybody, but I also looked at all the players since I've been here. There's close to 70 that have signed second deals. Mm-hmm. And of those 70, we look at character also, which we kind of know what these guys are. And we kind of use a character matrix based off of a 4-point system. The average score on those guys was a 3.5. So that's your Brady James, that's Joseph Adai. Mm-hmm. These are guys that have played Andrew Whitworth, Kyle Williams. And what's so great about being in an institution like this, you've had a lot of great athletes that have come through here, but now we can study why were they so good? Why? What's this population look like? Same thing with, I've been very fortunate being part of 4 national championship teams with 4 different coaches. And what was the difference in between those teams too, or any differences, mm-hmm. or the similarities? So that's where we have a great ability to look at with the past, try to predict a little bit in the future now. And that's where the passion comes in with the mental processing. Now we do see commonalities in these teams. Yeah. But now we can objectively see this. Before, because someone's smart, you assume that they're going to be really good in the processing, and that's not true. You have to have intelligence, obviously, know the playbook, but you have to be able to process decision-making. How impulsive are you going to be? Are you able to search the field? Can you scan the field? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of these pieces that now we know that make sense because we see outcomes again in the NFL. They're the most successful players have scored a certain score. Same thing here.
So when I think about measuring or testing mental skills, right? The physical skills are very obvious to test. It's bench press, it's 40, it's shuttle. You can expand on that in a number of different ways. But when I think about mental testing, traditionally I think Wonderlic or I think GPA. The measurements for that, and that's not to criticize Wonderlic, but the measurements for that kind of stuff have been in place for a long time and maybe not updated, at least to the public. The public isn't fully aware. So what's the difference between that sort of the GPA, the Wonderlic score that I think most people would associate mental capacity measurement with, and then the S2 testing that y'all have done? And just in that same question, what's the history with getting them involved here and the work that y'all have done and how that is
right?
It's
so the history
currently
began. We were the pilot school. I kind of Tommy Moffitt actually knew this particular individual from Tennessee, and I've always when we talked about it, I've always had look, this is something we really need to quantify.
Yeah.
This is a missing piece.
Yeah, because you started the character before that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So this is a missing piece. If we can find this, and so we've helped them, develop the company. They had, we gave them what input we thought, but they were able to take what they've seen here with our players and the performance, so they've been able to do a build out from there. Mm-hmm. Now they're in the NFL. They do actually do every prospect that would go to the combine. Mm-hmm. So they have a pretty strong hold in the NFL. But before he came in, also I was on a Zoom call for about an hour. We're going over, just looking at our players' data over the years. Mm-hmm. And it shows the success rate of our players, not only here, but again, that move on to the NFL. I did a talk for the Rams. They invited me to do before last season. They bring guest speakers in, and they wanted to know. They heard that Coach O does a great job on evaluation and the success that we've had. And I went around the room at the end of the talk and I said, why did this guy miss as a top draft pick? Why? You guys have decided that they can run fast. The physical skills, you determine that. Mm-hmm. You know that. What's under the hood of that car, or what's under the hood of that player? Mm-hmm. So I went around the room. What'd you miss on this guy? Well, he didn't do the right things off the field. Okay, character. What's the next? Well, he got into the wrong things, wasn't a hard worker, was kind of lazy or whatever. Okay, another character. Well, he was kind of a slow blinker, or he didn't able to process the defense. Okay, that's processing. The offense was a little overwhelming for him, but okay. So you guys said nothing to me about the physical talent. You didn't say he wasn't fast enough. You didn't say any of that. And that's assuming that the injury ratio is low. So, if we can start to define these things, and it will take a lot of the guesswork out. But it has to be the mindset of the coach, has to be the mindset, and that's where Coach O and his staff has been so progressive and so good about, look, we don't always can say that we've always done it this way. That's not something that we want to hear about. So they've allowed us, our team here, and our group to put this into play, and hopefully we're going to continue to grow this. He brought in some fantastic coaches that really love this information and do it. So one of the projects we're looking at in the summer, we talk about the physical skills and we talk about the 40, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's kind of an antiquated test.
Yes.
And, well, what really matters? Well, there's a guy that was drafted by the Bengals, ran a 4.2. He has a total of about 730-some yards in 4 years. Jarvis Landry, who runs a 4.7, had that many yards in his rookie season. Mm-hmm. Why is he getting open? Why is he has intelligence. He has great hands. We know that. But he's getting open. Mm-hmm. He's able. Well, one of the things we want to do, we bought some new equipment to see the efficiency of these guys in route running. That's what's going to matter. Mm-hmm. Well, who can run a sluggo route, or who can run a slant the most efficient? Now we got a baseline. Let's see if we can improve it. Mm-hmm. Let's look how he decelerates. Let's look how he can accelerate out of there. Mm-hmm. So that's a practical way to look at someone's performance. Mm-hmm. Instead of just saying, oh, he just runs a 40 and we're going to – no, we don't run – football's not a uniplanar sport. We just don't run in one direction. Yeah. Is there a 9 route that they run in? Sure, but a lot of times they're going to get jammed. They have to decelerate. They're going to have to accelerate out of there. Mm-hmm. They still have to make a move. So I think that's where we're trying to, look at each. We're trying to get each position this summer and look at what matrices we can look at to see based off of performance. And it's like Coach said. We were fortunate. We won a game last year because of the data that our team put together that blocks a kick. So we knew that particular individual had the skill set coming off that particular edge. And that was the great, what's so great about that, Coach McMahon was, wanted the information and for him to be forward thinking and just like Coach O, it allowed us to do something that really contributed. Virtually it was a difference. Sometimes you look at it, it's a difference between a losing season.
Yep.
And, those things are impactful. So I think, again, you're only as good as the people above you. You're only as good as the people around you. And I think that's what's allowing us to continue to develop.
That was Jay Ward.
Jay Ward,
yeah.
We knew.
It's funny, if I remember that celebration, there was like you can almost kind of see him in his eyes and then everyone else celebrating around him like, I knew that was going to happen.
And I ran over to Coach McMahon, and I gave him a little flipper and it hurt his knee a little. So I said, now, if we block a kick, this was from the summer, I said, we're going to come at you and give you. So, it was kind of special because, it was kind of somewhat predictive.
Yeah.
So that was kind of neat to see that.
Do you mind sharing what some of the other matrices, let me get that word right, matrices are across positions?
So we were going to look at, from a linebackers meeting with Coach Blake Baker, we're going to look at some of the drops these backers do in a particular it's a pretty consistent type drop that they do. So we're going to look at that in multi-directions and how they react to a stimulus. So if it's a ball carrier cutting one way or the other. Defensive line, we're trying to finalize getting a pressure pad up on the wall. We want to look at, this is Coach O, where the defensive linemen come out of their hips and you want to see them in a straight line and how much impact they have. And we may look at right and left side from left and right arms, but we also can look at the total impact that they have, see if they're getting the right technique for explosiveness. We're going to do the receivers in more or less the route running. That would encompass tight ends, running back. So that takes a whole
skill guys,
all the skill guys. And the safeties, talking to Corey Raymond, we're looking to maybe look at the rotation of their head when they rotate with the eyes and see how they're picking up the ball.
Yeah.
So I know on Stingley he has a preferences. This is why I think Corey has put him in a position where he can react better, where he can see the ball. Obviously that would help on defending the ball, obviously deflections or blocking the pass, no down, or it's going to enhance the interception.
Yeah.
So I think what we should do when we look at players, you always want to extract what they do well. We talk about weaknesses, but that's fine to identify. I always believe if you don't focus on what they do well, then if you focus just on their weaknesses, and they become neutralized.
Yeah.
I think it eliminates what we see. That's why it's a team, and that's why I love this coaching staff. They're so innovative, and they've been so great.
That was going to be my next question. It sounds like it's a collaborative process where you basically sit down with a coach. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but hey, what can I look at for you?
That's exactly what I did with the offensive line. So we have a tracer here, which is going to look at how they move side to side in their pass rush. So they have to customize some things. So that's one thing we are going to look at.
What was that word you said, tracer?
It's called tracer. It's right out there in the training room. It has a TV, but the camera will pick up the body.
Okay.
So it'll pick up your movement, so we can look at reaction time.
Yeah.
We can look how they accelerate to an area, decelerate to an area.
I think I've seen like Jeremy Hill doing that before a couple years ago in the training room.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And we look how quick they can get to a spot. So now we can see if these guys need to work on anything, or maybe we see a weakness and he can adjust the player accordingly.
Yeah, that's it's almost like what you're talking about, and it goes back to the mental skills part we're talking about. For so long, like if you were assessing how someone ran a route, it was the eyeball test.
Right. That's right.
Like I knew, because I have vision, that Justin Jefferson was a very good route runner.
Right.
That was clear early, like when he was at camps and you saw the videos of him just putting guys. But you don't really know how to measure that, right? Like you just kind of see it.
That's right.
And now you're quantifying these things.
And they did when Jefferson got drafted by the Vikings, someone suggested they call us, and I talked to them, and I said, look, you guys just stole this guy.
Yeah.
This guy should have went higher. The Eagles passed on him. They took another receiver in place. And I said, let's look at Justin Jefferson. He's got a low injury ratio. He's got great locker room presence, great character side. he can see the football bilaterally running routes. We know that through our stuff that we've studied. We also know that he's an elite, very high elite mental processor. I said it's a slam dunk that this guy's going to do well for your team. He will be a very effective player. He'll be able to play early on, so on and so forth. And sure enough, almost rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Right? But it was too easy.
Yeah.
You know, if you take all these things, it shouldn't be that complicated.
Yeah.
And but, you know, again, I give credit to our coaches. They identify a guy that was a 2-star player. He's a guy that, you know, he came in 150-some pounds. And you develop them. Our program has developed these players, and I think that's another huge, plus in what we've done.
When you talked about the mental process and the S2 test, what does that look like? Is it a written test? Is it something they're doing in space?
It's actually on they have a special computer because needs all the different RAM and memory and so on and so forth. So it's a test on the computer, but it looks at different movement patterns. It looks at, so you brought up the Wonderlic, where the Wonderlic is very antiquated on.
It's a written test, basically, right?
It is. And look, what are you really, really testing? If you pull out the data on that, I guarantee you the correlation isn't probably as good as the S2. Now you have, the S2 is able to show the Pro Bowl players now have scored a minimum of 65, and that's almost 80-some% of those guys. Yeah. So you take a test that allows you to look at how these guys process. Again, multiple moving objects. They put you in situations how your speed perception would be, even in the game. Is it too fast for you? How you scan the field. How you search things. How fast you can make a decision in complex situations, how impulsive you are. Are you going to be the guy that tries to force a ball, jump off sides? Yep. Can you improvise? I think it's one of the most important pieces. Most football players can break down. Now what do? Can you improvise to make up for it? That's where Joe Burrow was so good. He was able to meander through the pressure and get open where he feels comfortable, where he'll run the ball, but he could improvise. So we also can see how these guys learn. Are they a visual learner? Are they instinctive? And so, we're trying to narrow it in even more so to find out, is it position specific? Are these the traits that you really need? We know the quarterback pretty much needs all of them. Yep. So, I'm a believer of the center, the middle linebacker, and safety. That it is such a key point that is a commonality to championship football. And those guys have to be able to have processing power and character.
Yeah, I see some numbers on your computer there. Can you share any of those numbers? It's got it's a picture, for those who can't see, it's a picture of Joe Burrow and a bunch of really high numbers.
Yeah, a lot of high numbers. So the
it just
score,
disappeared.
As it goes up. As you see the score, it's based out of 100. And you see he scored a 97.
So those are Joe's scores right there.
Yes,
97%.
And they're public because it's on their webpage.
S2. It's pretty good.
Joe,
it's an A plus.
Yeah. I mean, you can see, and these are scores of. We look at 9 different categories. So he's a visual learner. So a lot of times you have one strength versus the other. He had both. So visual learning, he can watch video, he can see things, and he can take it onto the field.
Yeah, he had great play recall. Like he could recall plays with precision.
Now, instinctive learning. This is where it's probably the most critical. Instinctive learning is how you adapt to the game. So are you a different player in the first quarter versus the fourth quarter? And what I mean by that, they're getting the nuances of the defense.
Gotcha.
Now he's figuring it out. Now, guys that aren't instinctive learning, they have high visual, they're going to struggle a little more. They have to be coached. They have to be told kind of what to do, and it's exhausting. But impulse, we talked about impulse. As you know, Joe didn't turn the ball over much. He's not an impulsive guy. I've learned with quarterback play, the guys with strong arms will try to fit things in small windows.
Yeah, we talked about that previously. Where you'd rather
they're impulsive.
Yeah,
and they don't study
a
film.
Good arm.
I want above average arm.
Yeah.
I was looking at all the quarterbacks that won the Super Bowl. I was putting together a document. It's funny. You had Roethlisberger, Flacco. There might have been one other. Now, Brady has won a lot, but he has above average on. Manning, Breeze, Warner. These are guys. Now, Mahomes is an oddity because he can throw different pitches.
Yeah.
He can throw the changeup. So, from his baseball background, but all those guys, most of the guys had above average arms, and it's again we fall in love. Oh, he can make that throw. Oh, well, I was talking to Matt Flynn the other day. He goes, you know how many times I really have to muscle up and throw it? Maybe once in a season.
Yeah,
that's it. So again, the mindset of evaluating maybe even quarterbacks have to change of how we look at things, especially in the NFL. He can make those NFL throws. Well, define an NFL throw, then we'll go. You rarely throw a ball over 50 yards, so who cares if they can throw 90 or it's
1 out of 100 throws maybe.
Exactly. So is it a catchable ball? And that's another thing that we look at. We delve into what's the percentage of drops of that receiver and who's throwing the ball. So I think that's how you have to look at things. It's not just, it's like the protections. It's people think, we need more protection back there. So that's a 7 and 8 man protection. Well, versus a 5 and 6. Well, it's counterintuitive because the 5 and 6 has more outlets. Go look at your QBR. Completion percentage goes up when you have less men in the block. So it's those kind of things. So this is a snapshot. And then you see a picture of Jeff Ireland down there. The Saints have used it. They called us, and I said, I would look at your guys up the middle. You guys already have what these guys. You have a database probably because you've experienced how they process, how they are. See if it matches up, and they felt like it did, and then so they're one of the teams that use the system, and I think that it's a piece. It's not going to be a panacea.
Sure.
There's probably a 12% error, 13.
Sure.
It's not going to uncover everything, so I think you just have to be smart from how you look at the data. That's why I said there's different traits that I think we're starting to home in on at these different positions. So.
I want to talk about you in a little bit,
Yeah.
but before we talk about you, is there any? I know you haven't done the testing yet that we talked about with some of these guys. Is there any insight to this team coming up this year that you have already?
I think what we see with this team, and again, here's the facts. We were down about 30 players from the year before. Even the Florida game, we had 45 scholarship players after those guys got injured.
The Florida game was like watching the third string offense from fall camp.
It was
like when I first.
And think about it, it was freshman true.
Yep.
I'm talking about true freshman.
Yep.
I'm not talking about redshirt. Quarterback, running back, tight end, receivers.
Yep.
I think we had some corners. So we were playing with a team that, had nothing to do with the year before. Nothing.
Yeah, literally.
Then you have 20 players that were on NFL teams from the 19 team. That's 20. I mean, that's crazy. You only play with, 22 starters?
So let's go into your place of business and take out your 20 most effective people.
Right. So we're going to wipe all them out, and let's see how that plays out. Then you lose coaches.
Yeah.
So now you're really scrambling.
Yeah.
And so this year we have a lot of these guys coming back, probably the highest number of players coming back.
Yeah. I think I did the snaps the other day. It was like 96% on offense and 78 on defense from like the last 2 games of the season. I guarantee it's
one of the highest.
Yeah, it's high.
Now, then you look at the character piece. We're sitting really well on the character side.
Yeah.
I think we have, it reflects on success in the past.
Yeah.
So I think that's huge. Now we're going to look at some different numbers this summer, and we're going to try to break down some each position. But I think that alone allows you to give you some predictive behavior now, and you feel a lot more comfortable going in with the guns loaded per se. So yeah, it's.
I think I've heard, and maybe it's one of the coaches I've talked to on a previous podcast, or maybe it's just an interview that Coach O's done. But I've heard that this team's really close too. Can you measure that?
No. Can you measure it? It'd be hard.
Yeah.
But again, if you're around a team and you're around an environment, you can call it subjective, but it becomes objective because yes, to answer that question, it is extremely close, extremely close unit. And I think that's part of the chemistry piece. I don't know if I talked about the Captain's Class book with you last time.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned.
So I was doing that piece with the Rams, and I get an email. I always wanted to talk to the guy that wrote it. And he goes, well, I just listened to you talk. And he goes, I'm a consultant with the Rams. And he emailed me and says everything was so, in depth. And it really, I wanted to talk to you some more about how you come up with this. Because that's kind of what he does a little bit.
I'm looking up the...
Sam Walker is his name. And I just talked to him a couple weeks ago, matter of fact.
I heard him on a podcast at some point.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
And, I was able to, chat with him a couple of weeks ago again because, they had some questions on some of their players and we were talking about some things. And he's also sits in the interviews with our players. And he goes, tell me about this. Tell me about this guy. Tell me, does it match up to what he wants to confirm? And so we were just trading ideas, and I believe that's how you get better. But he wrote this book called Captain's Class, and it really is a insightful book. I really like it. I think it gives you it talks about the captains of these great dynasties and what they had in common, and it really ties in very well. So also to mention another piece of technology, because I just noticed it. So if you see, we have our PhD student over here. She's worked with EA Sports on campus.
Yeah, she's got a helmet on.
It's a virtual oculus device. We're looking at receivers setting up kind of where they're catching balls. And we're looking at this to take the wear and tear off the player, but they can work with their vision, timing. So EA Sports has been great. So she's put this program together, so we're going to be running receivers through this program. So that's
I want to try that thing on.
Yeah, we'll do it right after. She'll let you put it on.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's a nice another piece that it's funny. There's so many things that we do, and sometimes you don't think about everything that we're able to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, every time I come, that's the thing that I always say is that if I ever need a story idea, I just walk around here for about 5 minutes, and I got my hands full of them.
Right.
I want to talk about you, and I know you'd rather talk about your work, but I do want to talk about you. First of all, how did this innovative streak in your thinking start? Were you born with that? Is that something you picked up along the way?
I think so. I think it's kind of innate. I come from a family of immigrants. I always say this. Why did they come to this country? When I said, well, I think they're willing to. It's in their DNA. Yeah. They're willing to take a chance.
How far down the lineage?
I'm first generation. My mom's from Spain.
Okay.
I'm second generation Italian. Our family's from Italy. So it's pretty near and dear to us. And, my mom was 11 when she came. And we all went back to our hometown. And it looks like San Diego. And I'm thinking, why would your dad come and move to a coal mining town and work in a black, dark area?
Yep.
Well, the economy was bad. There was civil unrest, and the war broke out, World War II. My mom didn't see her dad until she was 11.
Yeah, wow.
Her mom got pregnant because they couldn't ship.
Yeah,
the ships couldn't go. He had to save the money.
He came first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then so I think it's in our DNA. I think it's what happened when. I'm willing to try anything. I mean, there's stuff in his office, if it's making these little stadium bowls or with CNC making baseball bats, I'm not afraid to try something.
Yeah.
If it's worth, learning about it. And look, today's world, you got Google, you got YouTube. You can get a master's in Google and an undergrad in YouTube. So, if you're not afraid to talk and ask questions and look at things, and if it makes sense. And the thing is, it has to have practicality to it.
Sure.
And I like to objectively measure things because then it's just the hypothetics.
Sure.
So I think there was always that desire to, I've enjoyed the numbers and the predictive stuff. Even I was not good in math, but the type of math I am good in is when you talk batting averages and all that, and so I think that was conducive to what and there I knew that there was something that we could measure because when I was fortunate to win the first championship at Florida State, there was a commonality amongst that team. It was Charlie Ward, it was Warwick Dunn, Derek Brooks. I mean, these are fine human beings too, and so I've been very blessed to have that with these other teams, and then the 03, 07, and the 19. So there's things that you look at. So I think it was innate. I think why don't we study this? Why aren't people looking at this more?
Curiosity and kind of a combination of curiosity and a beginner's mind of not being afraid to try new stuff.
Right.
You talk about the Stadium Bowls.
Right.
Tell me what that is, because I see it right there, and I can sort of see the edge of it.
So I think during the COVID, I was dangerous. I get dangerous, and so I bought I learned how to use a CNC router. So what I did, I don't have enough to do. Then I started making cutting boards and more things. So these are, you get a CAD program, you draw it, and so I said, you know what, I'm going to try to make I've always liked stadiums, so I drew it out. And obviously there's a lot of misfires until you could do it. So
it's awful. It's just
Then I make them for some people, and so it just gives you a different, a little different view from what a stadium out of wood would look like. And I do. As a matter of fact, I did some over the weekend. I did a Baltimore Ravens for somebody in Pittsburgh Steelers.
How long does it take to do one of these?
To cut it, it's about 45 minutes. Then you do the sanding, and then you do the etching in that. Now, this one was all carved. I kind of did an outfield fence that gave me a little unique dimension. So this one was probably about close to 50 minutes. So, but that one, I went back and I had to do the football field and the graphics. So it took a little bit longer.
If you're listening right now, you need to watch the YouTube version of this because it's unbelievable. Where did you get this idea from? Is this something
I just came up with it? No, I just thought it would be something. This is going to go to a fellow that has actually helped me out with some of the wood. I've done cutting boards and these different tapas boards, and I'm going to send that to him because he was kind enough to give me some different type of species of wood to do some cutting boards and things.
So was working with wood, did that start with the bats or was that before the bats?
Because
I've never heard the story of the bats from your perspective.
Yeah, so the bats was started, my dad did some woodworking and I always liked it. But you just never know. You just never know what's going to come out of from woodworking. And then the last project I did before the bats, I was making a barrister bookcase for my son. And he was like, I had some stuff I could put in there. I was really just put items, but so he came, and when he was 7, 8 years old, he comes up to me. We would watch baseball, and he goes, "Dad, I'd like to have a wood bat to hit with." I said, "All right, let me call these companies. Maybe we can find somebody that, But no one made them short enough.
For that size,
everything. So you probably played Little League.
I remember my dad played at Nichols in the 70s, and he had a big wooden bat. But I remember being a kid, and that thing was so heavy.
It was heavy. Yeah. Usually I needed an inch short. An inch is a big deal because even in major leagues, it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
But for a little kid, so
they make the little souvenir ones, and then they make the giant ones.
Right.
Adult season, there's nothing between. Yeah.
Right, and I just made a little mini bat on my. I still have my lathe. I did it this weekend, and I put an attachment to it, so it's a bottle opener. They actually came out.
I'm just going to give you like $100. I just want you to make me like a bunch of wooden souvenirs.
Kind of stuff. So anyhow, I said, well, I took wood shop. We grew up in a coal mining town around Uniontown, PA, and I said, I'm going to go buy a cheap lathe from Harbor Freight. Mm-hmm. I remember how to use it. I still say this day it's the best class I ever took, was that 8th grade woodshop.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started making them bats, and there's one behind you, the first one I did. It's awful. It's that black and no, the one right next to it.
This
yeah,
one?
yeah.
It's the first one you made.
So I brought it in. I let Matt Mock, he was our quarterback at the time. I said, look at this thing. And it's
Geno Crusher.
Yeah, so it's brutal. I don't even know what kind of. I think I just used black paint.
Uh-huh.
I did have electrical tape here,
Yeah.
but it's not tapered properly, but anyhow, it's heavy. So
First one.
I brought it in, let Matt see it. Mock played baseball for 3 years for the Cubs, and I said, let's talk about the geometry of these bats. So I kind of picked his brain, and so I cut them for him, and then my son used a wood bat until he was 12. Then Eduardo Perez, I was going up for our athletic trainers meeting, and we were catching up. It was in St. Louis at Old Bush, and he says, "What have you been doing?" I said, "I've been making some bats for my son." He goes, "Really?" He goes, "Bring me up a couple." And he said, "What model?" And there were some bats stashed in the indoor here. It was a Louisville model. I said, I think there's one back there. I'm going to look at it and I'll measure it and I'll make it. It's called a C243. And I brought it to him. He meets me in front of the hotel. And he's holding it. Now, I haven't seen Eddie since I was at Florida State. That's where I met him.
Yeah.
And he does Major League Baseball now. He's one of their prime guys. And he goes, I'm gonna use this tonight. I'm going to sneak it in because you have to be licensed and the whole deal. I said, Eddie, I've only seen 7 and 8 year olds use this thing. This thing may explode. I said, you're going to hit this bat? I made it in my backyard now, only a couple of days ago. He goes, no, I love it. He goes, better yet, come down. I'm going to get you down for batting practice. I want to introduce you to a couple guys. Wow. And that's when he introduced me to Albert Pujols. The bat he gave me is right behind you, too. Albert, at the time, was very... he's becoming the number one player in Major League Baseball. He didn't want to give any equipment, so Eddie talks to him in Spanish and says, look, trust me. Give him one of your bats, he'll replicate it. So that was the first bat was ever given to me. And I replicated it, and Barry Larkin was playing for the Cincinnati Reds, and Barry loved it too. And he says, matter of fact, I'm playing in Houston in a week. Can you make me this model? So that's where it kind of started pivoting to becoming a real business
from recreation.
From recreation. Then me and Geno went to Minute Maid because he says show up at batting practice. I have no idea, And so we go in. I said, Geno, you walk in with the bat because if they take it from you, whip up some tears and act like you're really upset about it because they're not going to let me carry. So they let us walk in with this baseball bat. We go down by the stands. They're taking batting practice. And I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just standing there with this bat. All these people are thinking he's going to get it signed. And so we kind of finally get a hold of the bat boy. And I said, Barry's wanting this bat. He goes over and Barry sees us and he gives us thumbs up. We hand it over. Everybody, because there was a lot of people. There was like close to 100 people down there trying to get autographs. And you can hear everybody talking, going, man, he's going to get him to sign that bat. And all of a sudden, he starts putting the Moda stick on there. He goes, he's using that bat. And he takes BP with it. And that was the first time we saw a hit. That was the first hit. He snuck it in the game also, and he gets a hit. And me and Geno got to see it. So, and then I partnered with Joe Lawrence, who played football here. He was the number 1 draft pick with the Toronto Blue Jays, a wonderful person. He told me he was the number 1 pick with the Blue Jays, but this made his dad's life to play football for LSU. And he was probably about 27 years old, and he saw these bats by my cubicle. He goes, holy crap, these things are unbelievable. Why don't we do something with it? Then Kurt Ainsworth was getting rehab at the time, and so we kind of partnered together. And, Joe was a great partner, still do some things with him today, and Kurt did a great job with the business side of it and managing it, and he's been a superstar there. And so that was the genesis, and we passed Louisville Slugger up probably 6-7 years, and they've had to market for 100 years. But again, I go back and tell people that that 8th grade class did pay off. I did find over another COVID deal related to that, the teacher I had was old. He was an older gentleman. He was probably already in his upper 60s or 60s. And I wanted to tell somebody from his family, look, this is what your dad taught me. And it really paid off. So we found his daughter finally through some connections. And she's about 60. She's in her upper 60s now. And she was very tearful. And I surprised her. I made her a bat, with her name on it. And she just wrote us a nice letter. And she just couldn't believe it. So, you look at all those things and how that course of action's gone. I think one of the funniest stories is we're playing Alabama and there's Derek Jeter and he's seeing me with this pouch on and the LSU stuff because they only know me from the locker room and that's like another life. This Major League Baseball. Worlds. And he's looking at me and he's going, "What are you? Why are you wearing this stuff?" I said, "Well, this is my real job." So a lot of players then they find out about the LSU part, and I can't believe how many college football fans there are in Major League Baseball. Yeah. So anyhow, that's a little longer than you probably wanted on the snapshot of the bats.
No. It reminds me of something that I was just reading. I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan, and a lot of your approach to life reminds me of Tim Ferriss because I don't know if you know Tim Ferriss, but he's basically just a human experimenter. He just tries as many things as he can. And he has a book called Tools of Titans where he takes all his interviews with all these great people. He basically, I think he described himself as he interviews world-class people and tries to put their ideas into use, which is kind of what I try to do with some of the stuff that I've been doing. And in this book, he interviewed, I think, the guy that created Dilbert, the comic strip. Right. And he said his philosophy was there's two ways to be successful. Either you can be the best at one thing or you can be in the top 25% at two things. Right. And if you're, if you're the best at one thing, that's a very, very few people who can pull that off. But if you're very, very talented and very good at two different things and combine them together, you got a really good chance, right? It sounds like sort of your approach to things because I think you've got, I wouldn't limit you to two. You've got a bunch of them, but you've maximized that curiosity. You've maximized that. I don't know, is it being particular? Is it being attention to detail or self-learning? It's probably a number of different things, but you've mixed these worlds from the athletic training stuff that made your brain click and, man, I like this. I like knowing about the human body and how everything's connected, right? And I guess that's what you're doing. You're looking for connections everywhere.
You are. And look, it's about relationships. And it's about the people you surround yourself with. I mean, we're only as good as the people around us. I got an opportunity to go to an NFL team, and I looked at them and said, "I'm not that good. I'm only as good as the people around me." And I think that it is really true. And I think you talk a little bit of philosophies and the life side of it. I'll sit with a player, and I said, "Look, guys, there's things in life if you just do it the right way." I mean, we talk to our young kids that come in here and talk to them about guarantees in life. We're not going to live forever. There's probably some taxes you're going to pay, and you're not playing football. Yep. So let's find out. Let us assist what we can do to help you find out where your path is. And sometimes you just need some stimulation. But I said, a lot of people live with anxiety. A lot of people live with these things. But I said, have good character, just be good to people, see what happens. And that is a strong statement. I said, the other thing is enjoy the moment. Like we're sitting here, enjoy it. Yes, you have to plan, but that'll give you anxiety if you think you need to do this and this. I really believe that when players, I see them pressing, I think the other aha moment is don't use numbers as a goal. Because if you say, I got to have 10 sacks, and you don't have them the first couple, now you're going to start pressing. Yeah. I'm telling you, I've seen it. So many interceptions.
You're describing me as a high school athlete.
So you
counting the points in the game that I'm scoring. Oh, I've got 6. I got to get 6 more for out.
So what happens? You get out of your technique.
Yep.
You press.
Yep.
And that's so. Enjoy what you have. Enjoy. Your goal should be coached. Listen to what the coaches have to say to you. Study film. Go to class. That's part of discipline. Yeah. I don't care if you like school or not. That's showing that you can show up. I said the third thing, go do something for somebody and see what happens to your life. It'll change. There's things that we do that I've done, but I'm not putting it on Instagram. I'm not doing it. People don't need to know that.
Yeah.
But do these things and watch what happens. Yeah. So, you try to, put all these things in encompassing. And I really like sitting we had a player that transferred in and sit down with them. What do you like? Tell me what you see on your position. What are things you liked and you didn't like at maybe the last place? Maybe we can get better. So I think sitting down with a player is really interesting. So Clyde Allaire was a great example of when we were doing the eye stuff. I sit him down, I look at routes. What do you guys, he goes, I like the angle route.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, boom.
Great video game route.
It's a video game route. Mm-hmm. And so I write down, I have a sheet that we have. So you kind of break down the routes. I'm trying to find out where they feel comfortable, what route running. So this is the beginning of the.
Does each guy get a sheet like that, basically?
Yeah, the receivers. So that's how we start it.
Yeah.
Because I want to validate. Then we put the wearables and we look at film and drops and so on. So he goes, we don't have the route. I said, well, let's write it down and let's see what, Emsminger looked at it. I was going over it. And then Emsminger goes, man. And then he goes, this is something that we probably need to add back in. We had something with Spencer Ware at the time. Mm-hmm. We used to run, but we've gotten away from it. He goes, we're gonna add it. And sure enough, they did add it in. And it was really neat to see that, look, Clyde had that input that when you talk to a player, and especially a player of his, he's an elite processor, good character kid, so on. So all the things that we love. And not to mention, I think it was only a 3-star guy coming out. So, you take that player's input and you apply it. So that's why I'm saying the coaches have been so good because, look, they could have looked at it and said, no, we don't need it. But it was a piece of information. So that's why I think it's great to sit down with a particular player and get the feedback. So if you were a basketball player, where do you feel good shooting the ball? Mm-hmm. Maybe you have a preference. Well, let's study that a little bit more. Well, let's look at your field goal percentage from there. Maybe there is something to it.
Yep.
And I think those are all the things that, you can keep. It's almost like a tree. All of a sudden, these branches come off of an idea. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, you got this huge oak tree, So I think that's how we try to look at it.
And so part of your role is to prune that tree and make sure that the right ideas are getting to the right places and that sort of thing. And so I want to talk about, and you just said you don't put it on Instagram and all that stuff. I'll do that for you. I'll be the guy that puts it out there for the world and hypes you up. So part of the news of this interview is that you are sort of formalizing the things that you've done informally. Right. And so you've got a new title, and we were joking before about titles, and it's hard to put them in words. I'm a read a title, and this probably isn't even what the final title is, but Director of Performance Research, Analytics, and Innovation. And I'm sure that'll shift around a little bit. But basically what's happening is you've done all this as a head athletic trainer or whatever that title. And again, I'm terrible with titles.
Yeah,
with my own title
titles
here, so.
To me, and I always tell people we all work together anyhow. Titles are something that sometimes it's for egos and it's for people to feel like they're more important. Yeah. And look, I could get it, but we're all in it together.
What my dad would say growing up was, all my friends still quote this to this day. Do you want to have a title or do you want to have a testimony? Do you want to have a title and tell people what you are? Do you want to do the work?
Do the work. That's right.
And let it speak for itself. And so basically what's happening is informally for I don't know how many years, you've done all this research, analytics, innovation stuff, and it's sort of being formalized into a new position for you. Right. Does that change what you're doing on a day-to-day basis? Or
it'll change. I think it's going to allow me to, and with Coach's blessing, it's going to allow me to, we think we can take it to another step.
Yes.
Because now, look, we can get so much more creative. We have a lot more free time that will expand in what we've done. Mm-hmm. Now let's see if we can grow on those parts, and let's look at some different, analytics that really can apply. I looked at a kicking analytic. I looked at 3,000 kicks from hash marks. I kind of had a clue. Right-footed kickers, I felt like, are a little more consistent on the left, just because of the
pushing it that way, rather than pulling it.
That's right. Well, I wanted to use the NFL because they're the most consistent. and I looked at every active kicker right now. The data showed that there was a difference until the fourth quarter. There was no difference until the fourth quarter. And then under like 4 minutes, all of a sudden, pressure. You saw almost a 20% more miss on the right hash.
Wow.
So, that doesn't mean all kickers are like that. Again, you got to talk to your players.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the kickers, when you start talking to them, don't like it in the middle because they feel like they can miss both ways.
Yeah.
Or it's, you're on that angle, the ball, the trajectory is a natural draw, and it goes in. So we're playing Florida. I felt pretty good. We were on the left hash. He kicks it 57 yards-ish. Florida kicker's pretty good. He's on the right hash. Plus, we got Jay Ward coming off that edge.
Mm-hmm.
I was standing next to, I don't know if it was Panansky or Greg. I said, we got a chance he's on the right hash. I didn't know that particular data. I was just on a hunch that the right hash is a little bit more. I didn't know anything about and sure enough, the guy misses it. Now, Jay Ward almost, I don't know. I mean, he was close. But he missed it. Mm-hmm. And, when you have more time to look at these things, that is a game changer. Now we know it gives you more time to talk to the players and look, maybe we're going to look at something different than a coach does. Mm-hmm. And look, coaches are busy. They work hard, and they talk to their players. You know that.
Yes.
So if we can give them a piece of information they can capitalize on or, So just as simple as that. So there's so many different arrays of things that we can attack. And again, with our team, Nathan Lemoyne, Derek Calvert, we even brought Gabe over from Ticket Office. Mm-hmm. He's helped a ton. Then we have Neil Johansson and Guillaume Spillman over at Kinesiology. It's really created a great environment and creative environment for us to look at things that people wouldn't look at.
Yeah.
Because we talk about concussions, right? We have a symptoms checklist. Mm-hmm. We said, hey, let's do a simple study. Derek put it together. We're going to look at guys' symptoms after just come off the field. They didn't get hit or anything. How many symptoms do you have after practice? Well, there's 10 a lot of times. Yeah. How come no one's really looked at that?
Yeah.
So before we diagnose all these things as concussions, there we got a symptom score of, well, naturally, because it's hot, you do get headaches, mm-hmm. you get dehydrated mm-hmm. sometimes, you get tired, and, well, that's what they're asking you on these things. Yeah. It's those common. We looked at a study of rhabdo. Rhabdo's a big term, rhabdomyolysis. When athletes, if they had some issues, they go to the hospital and they look at your levels. If they're real high, it's diagnosed as rhabdo. We did a study. Maybe that's natural in a lot of people. Well, sure enough, we did a paper on it. We did a mild practice. Everyone would have had a rhabdo. But the next day, they go back down. We tested it. We did it with blood. But that would have been something that we would have said, well, everybody's got rhabdo. If you took them to the hospital, and they would have been out for weeks when they feel fine. Yeah. And we did the same thing with a player that had mono. Guess what? Maybe some people have bigger spleens than others. There wasn't that much documentation. So we had a player that was a very tall player that, again, we wanted to see after 6-8 months, maybe that's his natural size of his spleen instead of using this average number that we use. Yeah. Well, sure enough, it was his. So those are things that we really want to continue to look at and because those have an impact. Yeah. Those have a big impact. And those are just some of the things we've done.
Well, it just means I'm going to be bothering you more for story ideas.
That's good.
Hey, Jack, what you working on? Jack, what you working on?
Yeah.
Last question for you, and we'll wrap up. All these new ideas, all these innovative ideas, how do you come up with them? How do you remember them? Are you a guy that literally will write them down? Or
I usually, I'm not the best. As you can see, I do have a book, and I'm not the best with that. Yeah. I think I've always hated my handwriting. Yep. I was terrible in elementary. I'm terrible. Yeah. So a lot of times they're in your head. Then we'll discuss it with the group. That's one thing I do. Like we'll go to lunch or something, and we'll discuss. Look, then you discuss it with the coach and see if it has. Then extract what they have. So I think, like I said earlier, I said it's like a tree growing off. So when we find something, then maybe we can branch it. Now let's look at this. Yep. So I think that's really the great part about it, because you're creating something off of a study that creates another study.
Yeah. It's like the eye tracking going from receivers to DBs.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So you can really look at and look, we're looking to, it'll give us more time too to do some of these other sports that we did a little bit with basketball, women's basketball, and looked at free throw shooting, and there's definitely data there that shows what we thought it would.
Yeah, with eye dominance. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that was something we talked about off mic in a previous
you
conversation.
talked about it, and you said you had this coach, and my goodness, that guy was way ahead of his time.
And he's one of the best free throw shooters of all time.
If I remember, you said you increased almost 15% in your free throw shooting, and I think that's where I would start. I mean,
from under 70 to above 80.
That is crazy.
Yeah,
and we were laughing.
Just by moving the ball to open up one eye a little bit.
Open up because you're targeting. That's your target eye. Yeah. So if a guy has a problem fielding punts, use your target eye. Just rotate your head slightly. Yeah. That'll change the way you see the ball. And all those little. But that's a difference maker. Yeah. From not bobbling a ball, fumbling a ball, to making a receiver more efficient. Plus, you're giving them confidence. Yeah. I mean, my goodness, when a player has confidence, it changes, the whole complexion.
Yeah, it may have been placebo effect. It may have just
it could be.
It may have just been, hey,
which is okay.
Here's an extra tool for you, but it worked.
It worked.
And so if it works, it works.
But if you some of the tests that we do, we can see you're 15 degrees off. So the further out, someone said, I don't know if this is accurate, but if you're flying from like Los Angeles to New York, you would end up in Miami. To show you the spectrum of it. Yeah. But I mean, especially basketball, that's X amount of feet away. Yeah. So your perception's off if you don't use your right target eye.
Yeah. So you're not writing them down on a notebook. Or sometimes you do, but it's more just keep it in your head.
You know what I did? I did do. I don't know if it's still up, but it's probably. I did start putting together on some things. This is where we do the eye piece. This is how we track. This is that locks onto the pupils. Yeah. This particular player, you can see his eyes weren't in sync, so we did do a procedure to correct it, which probably one of the biggest impacts I've ever had in this athletic training career. This is something we work with Smart Speed. We just got this device in, and what we want to look at, again, we're going to look at some field goal block, pass rush efficiency, route running, proficiency. We're going to look at linebacker. We talked about the movement, screen offensive line performance. And, these are all wireless, and these can really look at reaction times now. It's a lot more sophisticated than what we had. So that is something I think we're really going to, tie in on. That's the Tracer Technologies. But, I'm using that because I'm using that as a piece. I'm putting together a thing for the recruiting. It's going to be an internal piece. To finish up on this is why this stuff's so important. And we touched on it before. This has the way the combine would take scores, and they look at their speed. They take two players. That's correct. Weight, you see how it is: height, weight, 40-yard dash,
hand, arm, stats.
But let's look at what happens when this player is the most efficient and who ends up being the most productive player. This guy scored a 22. This guy scored an 85. But maybe his measurables in their combine isn't up to snuff. But look what happens. The player one signs a second deal for 14.5.
Yeah.
So the player two has been declined. He's the 29.8% that would fall into that.
Yeah.
So that to me shows you, and that's a safety who has to have a high character, high cognitive motor processing position.
Got to measure the right thing.
Yeah.
We got to measure the right thing.
That's it.
Well, you're the king of measuring the right thing, and I'm sure you won't have any shortage of things to measure moving forward. So I'll be bothering you. That's part of your. I don't know if that's officially on your job description, but it'll be Cody's bothering you for more stories and story ideas. Because I'm telling you, the wide receiver story that we did with the 10,000 catches plus eye tracking technology, still probably the most popular story we've done.
I have it. Let me see. I know I got so much crap up here. Bear with me.
And I think as you're looking for that, I think I saw as we walked in the indoor something at the end of the indoor facility that looked like a TV screen, and Looked like something might have been going on down there. I don't know if that was. It was on the other side.
Oh, I think that's for camp, though.
Gotcha.
Yeah, this is the story you're talking about.
Yep. Summer 10,000 catches, yep.
Yep, and this was in New York Times. That's the wearable we use. Gabby worked here. She took another position where her parents are. She was a very, very instrumental on doing this also. Gabby was a superstar. I can't say enough about her, what she did, and she had a good relationship with the receivers, and it really, she got it, she understood it. So that's why it's refreshing. Look, we have to look at athletic training, we have to expand it.
Yeah.
You know, it can't be the same, and I think that's one thing we've been proud here at LSU. So.
All right, well, I've taken more than an hour of your time, so I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go put that helmet on, see what that VR looks like. That'll be fun. All right, Jack, thanks for your time. Appreciate it as always.